Folks, today's guest is the first Canadian we've ever had on the show. He's actually recording this episode from the penalty box at his local hockey rink. I'm joking, not actually. He's currently in Toronto, Ontario, the biggest and best city in Canada. This gentleman got into crypto way back in 2014 when he co-founded InstaBT. Talk about being ahead of the curve. Present day, he's the Chief Operating Officer of Bitbuy, where he oversees sales, marketing, and customer experience. I am pleased to welcome to the Crypto News Podcast, Jordan Anderson. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
Absolute. Oh man, am I excited for this one. Great to see a Canadian for the first time. It's nice, you know, when you can talk to someone and they understand when you say Toronto and when you can throw the A's out there and be a little more native. Can we swear on this podcast? It's technically a kid's show, but yeah, we can drop a couple bombs.
Fucking right, eh?
we'll have to mark the explicit on here, but I really appreciate you jumping on here, Jordan. And Bitbuy, what an incredible company. I actually use Bitbuy. I've been using them for a while. You guys did a really cool rebrand, which we will get into shortly. Love the new orange feng shui and the new UX on the website. But before we jump into that, I'd love if you could tell our guests a little bit more about yourself and how you got into crypto and blockchain.
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much again for having me. Pleasure to be here. My journey in crypto started back in 2013. When basically, I kind of was just, learning about new technologies, and I had a friend at the time who knew about a lot of different types of technologies, and, he kind of came to me and said, what do you know about Bitcoin? Have you heard about this stuff? And I didn't know much about it, and we started sort of going down the proverbial rabbit hole, watching documentaries, trying to figure out the story behind Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, and that's what I really sort of was drawn to Bitcoin, was like just this whole mysterious shroud of mystery behind the creation of the coin and what did it really mean. And I went through the financial crisis in university, and it did affect my family and kind of hit us pretty hard, and in the sense that I went into a lot of student debt and I just didn't really understand the financial system too well. And I know that as I learned more and more about Bitcoin, I was thinking, well, this is an alternative money and the digital money, and maybe it could work. And so with that and with InstaBT, we kind of decided that maybe we could start a business in this space because we wanted to figure out, okay, how can we actually buy the coin? And I was working in digital marketing at the time, back in 2013. So we basically, I got on board with starting this InstaBT with a couple co-founders. And the idea was how can you just buy a little bit of Bitcoin online and actually put it on a wallet or just hold it? There wasn't a lot of places to do that. And so, we basically created a way to buy Bitcoin using what was Interact cards, Interact Online. And so we had to do an integration with Interact. It was just half a Bitcoin at the time, which was nothing. It was $100 back then. And it was on the website, it was buy 0.5 Bitcoin. It was InstaBT with this little pop can opener logo. And my focus, because I at the time was very experienced with digital marketing, Google AdWords, I was trying to get the name out there, get the advertising out there, and help out in really any way I can. And 2014 came around. We launched a website. Some people were using it. Didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't really much back at the time. And it was a side gig. I was working full time, as I mentioned, in digital marketing. But I really got a nice early exposure to the industry. Was able to attend the Bitcoin Expo in 2014, where Vitalik Buterin and Joseph Lubin and this was in Toronto, of course. And Anthony Diorio had a booth, and I got a free Ethereum t-shirt, and these guys were just starting up. They hadn't even launched the pre-sale. And I was like, oh, what's this Ethereum stuff? And there was other Bitcoin ATMs there, and guys were speaking. There was a few exchanges at the time. One of the big ones in Canada was out of near Hamilton, Vault of Satoshi, and that was a big name back then. Of course, Kraken was sort of around. They ended up buying one of the exchanges in Canada, and there was Quadriga early on, and there was a few places to get these coins, but they're all super sketchy and nothing really worked well. And the space was so early that the technology was just kind of getting started. So we built this site. It was kind of put on the back burner, didn't really go too far. And then I ended up that didn't really take off. And I went and worked for Yahoo, at the time. And then I spent a couple of years there. And then I ended up leaving there after Yahoo got acquired by Verizon and jumping back in full time into the space with, one of my current business partners, Adam, who's the founder here at BitBuy, and that was at the end of 2017 after the bull run, and that's when I jumped back into BitBuy full time. It was just three of us then, and I made a bunch of cash in the corporate world. I was sick of corporate life, being a cog in the wheel. I saved up some money. I was like, this is my last shot to go build a startup, to take risk. And I saw what was happening in the crypto space with the last bull run. And basically I said to myself, this is here to stay. So even if if I'm going to bet on the Bitcoin industry, I'm going to bet on it now because it's kind of proved itself with the amount of capital that's come in. And I think it sucked in a lot of people that last bull run. And that's when I really got sucked in full time, even though it was in my periphery with the previous venture. And so, I just said, fuck it. I'm coming in full time, and there was a spot open up, and I came in to do sales and marketing and growth, similar to like the stuff that you're doing. And then we had Adam, who is more focused on technology and security, and another partner full time on more of like engineering, technology side, and one more on finance and compliance.
And again, it's awesome hearing about that because I'm a BitBuy user and I have been for a while now. One of the best parts about BitBuy is that, one, it's Canadian, obviously. And secondly, you tailor and cater towards the rookies and the vets. You have the OTC, you have the Express Trade, the Pro Trade, a multitude of different features on the website and the platform. But can you tell me if you have any funny stories or interesting stories about the early days of BitBuy and how much of a shit show and how much of a struggle it must have been getting the word out there and trying to convince people like, hey, one, Bitcoin is not a scam, and two, you can buy it on Canada on a legitimate and seamless and simple platform?
Yeah, totally. Like I remember, just starting out, and it was very similar to the previous project, the InstaBT, where you could just buy and sell a bit, but you could only withdraw Bitcoin. You couldn't deposit it. And so I remember we were like, oh, we need deposits. We need to be able to cash people out. It's 2018. Like everybody's cashing out. Like, how are we going to do this? So we just created wallets online, and we're like giving the addresses out to have people, put the Bitcoin back in and tracking it in a sheet and then cashing people out that way, through the bank accounts and sending them e-transfers, because we didn't have that functionality built, but it was like a great way to prove that that was something that people really wanted to do, and then build the functionality after. Some crazy stories. Like I remember having a few buddies, who knew that I had quit my job and now I'm doing sales and growth at BitBuy, and driving up and meeting them at early 2018 when the whole market's crashing, and meeting them and taking an $80,000 bank draft and then driving it over to the bank and then putting the draft into the account, and then, trying to get that money into his account, and just all these things I would never do now. And but we were just trying to figure it out. We were learning along the way, what worked, what didn't work. That year, 2018 for us was just such a big learning year, throughout that whole, crypto winter year, which was what works, what doesn't work, how do we scale this thing? How do we get web traffic? How do we get users? Where are the whales? What's OTC? Like all this stuff. Because we didn't a couple of us had a more traditional financial background, but, like I said, my background was, primarily focused in digital advertising. And so, scaling and scaling this thing and like implementing a lot of these processes and these different lines of business was such an amazing learning curve that I really look back on and just say, wow, like, how did I figure it all out to a certain extent? And I'm still learning all the time and still figuring it out. And that's what I love about this business is like that I get to constantly learn and constantly figure things out.
Life, baby. Well, I guess you guys aren't really a startup anymore. You're on your way to becoming a behemoth. But over the last couple months, BitBuy's really made some moves to get the brand and get the platform in front of the Canadian consumer. Before we get into the nitty gritty of BitBuy, I want to talk on some of the really cool partnerships that you guys have done. Now, one, and this is bananas. I have no clue how you guys got this up and running, but you did a partnership, and I saw this on Twitter with Murda on the beat. How the heck did that come to fruition?
Murder on the beat, so it's not nice.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably have no idea who he is, but funny enough was that at my days at Western University, I had a friend there, Corey Litwin, that I used to do a bunch of different types of, business with, whether it was, promoting different parties. That's what sort of where his specialty was, or different trips or concerts. And so he ended up basically working with Murda through his come up and being his managers from back in the day, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when Murda was just getting started, because Murda's a Canadian. He's from, I think, Stratford, Ontario, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe not Stratford, but somewhere out west by like Niagara. And so he kind of linked up with Corey, and he's his manager, and I saw that like Murda was tweeting about Bitcoin, and so I linked back up with Corey, and somehow we were able to put together a pretty sweet promotional partnership where he was able to kind of put us on Twitter and a few other social media sites, which was pretty cool. Hilarious.
He was also on with Pomp too. I don't know if you saw that up in Pomp's place in Miami, I think.
Yeah.
I saw it on Twitter. But when's the BitBuy X Murda Beats, track coming out?
I don't know. I think he kind of put a little bit of a rhyme in the video that we had out. Like he's like, something like buy Bitcoin today if you can in Canada on bitbuy.ca, and like kind of made it rhyme a little bit. But yeah, no, it's incredible. Like to see Corey and Murda get big and, produce some music with Drake and, move to LA and really like take off. It's definitely like inspiring and great to have like those types of guys in your network to kind of keep you motivated and see all the things that like, people from our hometown Toronto can achieve.
Jordan mentioned there, number one, Western University. If you are in the ages of 19 and we'll call it early 20s, once the pandemic is over, go check out Western if you want to have a good time. It is a treat and a half and a party and a half, and it will not disappoint. Definitely a very easy spot to spend your 4 years of undergrad. Definitely check that out. And secondly, Murda on the Beats, Canadian producer who is one of the biggest in the rap game right now. So also check his stuff out as well. The second partnership I want to talk about, Ottawa Senators. For those who do not know, the Ottawa Senators are a hockey team in the National Hockey League. Ottawa is the capital of Canada, and the Sens are, let's just say this year they are poo, to put it in the most polite terms possible. However, you guys hooked up a very good-looking board side ad with the new BitBuy logo. I believe it's on the Sens bench in the neutral zone, just close to the blue line hash. And you guys did something really cool, and you dropped the new logo and the new design, the new branding before the public actually saw it. What was the thought process behind that, and how did that actually pop off?
Yeah, so basically, internally, we have a lot of hockey fans. What a surprise, right? Canadian company with a lot of hockey fans. But I don't know if you remember, but we're from Toronto, and the Leafs were playing in Ottawa that night.
Yep.
And so part of our thing was like, too, it's like we want to make sure that, people in Ontario know who we are. We're Toronto. We got the Leafs in Ottawa, huge rivalry, of course. I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm more of a Leafs fan myself than a Sens fan. And
love that.
And we figured, it'd be a great way to engage people on social media, like catch the new logo, take a photo, and then I believe, we had our users or our customers taking photos and then tweeting the photo of the board, of the logo on the board, and then we were able to do randomly give away a bunch of cash. I think like we randomly gave away like $1,000 or something like that, and a bunch of these new logo branded hoodies, just to get a bunch of people engaged. And I had a few people in my network just randomly reach out to me and say, oh, is that I think I saw Bitbuy on the hockey game, right? So I think it was just trying to get people engaged, get people excited about the new branding, get people excited about the new logo, and really just get our name out there, associated with, two of Canada's top sports franchises, which is incredible. And, really just kind of making sure that, I think there's just a lot of crossover between hockey and crypto and
100%.
The audiences and stuff like that. So it just seemed to make a lot of sense for us.
And that screams clout. Like if you have your brand name on a board side ad in an NHL hockey rink, you must be doing something right. And most Canadians trust hockey. They trust the NHL. So when they see the Bitbuy logo there, they go, all right, these guys must be in business. And hopefully they check you out and throw a couple $100 or $1,000 or mil into Bitcoin, ETH or something else good and watch it go to the moon. Yeah,
appreciate that. Or, get your Tim Hortons and then, log on to Bitbuy and buy some crypto.
You got it. You got it. Now, I've listened to a couple of your interviews online. I've read a bunch of your articles in prep for this show, and you have a very high-level understanding of not only the history of Bitcoin and crypto, but the history of Bitcoin in Canada. And this would be great for our Canadian listeners, and we have quite a few of them, quite a lot of them. It'd be great for them to learn a little bit more about the history of Bitcoin in Canada and what we could look forward to in the future. I'd love if you could just kick us off and tell us how that started and where we are present day.
Yeah, totally. So kind of going back to a few of the mentions I was making before, going to that Bitcoin Expo 2014, Ethereum was originally founded here in Canada, and I think everybody knows Ethereum by Vitalik, who's a Canadian who moved here from Russia, I think at a young age, at Decentral. So I actually remember going to Decentral, which was basically a Bitcoin meetup hub house right at Spadina and King Street West. And it was just this house, and you could go there, and there's like a Bitcoin ATM, and there was a bunch of Bitcoin meetups when it was just very early on, and a lot of people knew about what Bitcoin was or what crypto was. And so that was a really cool sort of gathering spot for people in the industry early on, before I was really seriously even in the industry myself, but I luckily had a chance to go there. And so originally Vitalik was a writer for Bitcoin Magazine, and he was going to these meetups, and then he partnered up, as I mentioned, with Joseph Lube and Anthony Diorio and a bunch of other folks, and he was the brainchild behind the Ethereum project, and that came out of Toronto. So I think that in terms of crypto folklore, that's really one of the big highlights for Canada, that Ethereum, and especially Toronto, where Bitbuy is based, that Ethereum was born here, which is pretty incredible. And then beyond that, for more of the general Canadian population, like I mentioned early on, there was a few Bitcoin exchanges where you could get crypto. There was there was InstaBT, which we started, but that was really just small and didn't really take off like BitBuy did. There was something called QuickBT by a guy named Jamie Robinson, it was a very simple way to buy crypto online, and he eventually shut that. That eventually got taken down. But I remember speaking to him once, and he said, "You know what? This isn't even a crypto buying service. This is a fraud mitigation service," which basically meant that most of the time he was just trying to cut back fraud to get people's fiat on as an on-ramp into the space. You had, as I mentioned, CA Vertex, Vault of Satoshi, some early exchanges. CA Vertex was an early exchange in Canada that was actually acquired by Kraken and got Kraken's foot into the Canadian market because they're, of course, a US Bitcoin exchange based out of San Francisco. And then they subsequently had a big office in Halifax. And not a lot of people know this, but BitBuy actually has a small office in Halifax now. And we have a few folks out there. So that Halifax in of itself has become a little crypto hub for Canada. Then of course you have Vancouver, and you had, Quadriga CX was based out of there. And that is sort of where things kind of get a little bit nasty, and ugly, and ugly for, crypto in Canada with that exchange and with what happened in the last bull run, with, of course, Jail Cotton. And there's a great documentary that recently was done, and it was by the same YouTuber who did all of the Satoshi, the Who is Satoshi Nakamoto videos. I'm just trying to look it up, the name here of that guy. So that of course, for those that don't know, was a huge ugly stain. I won't get too much in it, but that's by Barely Sociable. So if anybody wants to look that up, highly recommend that just to learn more about that. He did a great job of covering it, and he has a bunch of great videos on different types of mysteries and things like that. This was obviously a big mystery that led to $190 million of people's funds basically being lost. And they shut down early 2019 after that whole screw up and mystery. And we can get a little bit into that if you want, because it is part of Canadian crypto history. And essentially, a guy named Gerald Cotton and some other folks basically were running an insolvent cryptocurrency exchange and made off with a ton of people's money, and apparently died in India from Crohn's disease. So sort of unsolved mystery there. And I think it kind of led to a lot of scrutiny being put on companies like BitBuy and CoinSquare and other Bitcoin exchanges here in Canada, or Bitcoin trading platforms. Is more the accurate way to kind of coin these companies. And so that kind of led, a lot. And there was another exchange, defunct Bitcoin trading platform, Einstein Exchange, that kind of similar thing happened on a smaller scale. And so you had this Bitcoin CA Reddit, which was a big thing. It still is a big thing, but less so. It's more back then, where all the Bitcoin users in Canada would kind of come in. I think there's like around 15,000 subscriber Redditors that use this forum now, and sort of talk about the best ways to buy Bitcoin in Canada. Because what a lot of people don't understand internationally is, because Canada has its own banking system and its own payment rails, it's been American companies or global companies that come into Canada, they have to develop these local banking relationships to be able to provide services, to be able to fiat on and off ramp. And so it's a little bit more difficult when you don't have boots on ground. So that's why Canadian companies have focused more on being able to help Canadians get their Canadian dollars into Bitcoin and other digital assets versus other companies being able to do that. And so that's where BitBuy sort of emerged in 2018, with, after a bunch of these companies that were poorly run kind of went under it, along with a few other crypto trading platforms, fiat on off ramps, to be able to help Canadians get their money in and out of the crypto ecosystem.
This episode is brought to you by our dear friends at CoinPoker, the world's premier crypto poker platform. CoinPoker is a revolutionary blockchain technology-based platform that was developed by an ambitious team of poker players. CoinPoker uses USDT stablecoin as the main in-game currency and CHP as in-game fuel, offering all benefits of the crypto world alongside. CoinPoker also features instant and secure transactions using USDT, Ethereum, Bitcoin, or CHP tokens and no KYC. You heard that right, no KYC. CoinPoker users get huge promotions as they give away thousands in fiat each week. CHP is the currency of the CoinPoker economy, providing players with exclusive benefits and supports future developments delivered to the CoinPoker community. My favorite part about CoinPoker is the mobile app. When I'm on the go, I whip out my phone and play a couple hands of Texas Hold'em or bet on sports. They have an amazing sports book, really clean spreads, very clean UX, and an overall great time. If you'd like to check them out, go to coinpoker.com and give them a try. Present day crypto in Canada is thriving, might be a bit of an overstatement, but it's definitely buzzing. It's definitely doing really well. One point you touched on was the fiat.
No, it's thriving, Matt. Come on.
It's thriving, eh? Okay, it's thriving. It's thriving. One of the points you touched on, which was bang on, was the focus on Canadian companies really hammering down on the CAD, Canadian dollars, and or fiat to crypto, which enables the consumer, the Canadian consumer, to actually own crypto. Now, in the States, you have Venmo, you have Cash App, you have apps like that. In Canada, we don't have any of that. In Canada, we have something called Interact e-Transfer. When people think, oh, you're sending money via email, what the heck are you doing? It's actually pretty simple and very quick. It's seamless. You go onto your banking app. I use TD. I open up my accounts. I go to e-Transfer. I find someone I want to send money to, and boom, it's in their account 5 minutes later. On BitBuy, it's probably the easiest way, unless you're a whale and are doing north of 20K, north of 25K. It's probably the easiest way to put a couple hundred or a couple thousand onto the platform. You put in the user and password that BitBuy gives you, and then you also put in a little memo. And once you log into BitBuy, you will get a notification 10 minutes later that says, congrats, your funds have been deposited. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. Touching on the crypto in Canada point, we as in Canada, has just released a couple ETFs. I believe there are 2 or 3 Bitcoin ETFs, and the first ever Ethereum ETF also came out today. Evolve is spearheading that, I believe. It's pretty darn cool. We were the front runners of that. I think we were the first ones in North America. I don't think anyone in the States is doing that yet. Yes, there is Grayscale. Yes, you have MicroStrategy and you have Marathon, who have thousands of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But walk me through the whole ETF thing and why that's so important for people like my parents, who are traditional investors but also want exposure to Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally. I think Gemini Custody, which is the exchange started by the Winklevosses, they actually do the custody for all of the ETF providers. It started with more of a mutual fund setup with QBTC, which is Fred Pye, and he basically fought the regulators, or worked, or maybe not fought, but he pushed for years to be able to get that fund live, and he was sort of the first one through the door, which is pretty incredible. And then SOMC Purpose Investments, they were able to get more of the ETF style, which I think basically has a bit of a different settlement structure. I'm not exactly an expert in those vehicles, just because, of course, we at BitBuy focus on spot Bitcoin and spot Ethereum, which I like to compare this to buying a bar of gold versus buying a gold ETF, or, something that's going to give you exposure to the underlying asset. I think these ETFs are huge for the industry because they're obviously going to capture a lot more liquidity and a lot more wealth into these assets. And basically what happens is they're able to put, like your parents, like you said, they're able to put in money through their traditional financial system, like their broker or their investment advisor,
Yep.
wherever you can basically trade stocks and connect to exchanges. And these, ETFs are traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And you're able to, of course, then buy in with your Canadian dollars through the ETF. There's also a US dollar one that's coming out, I believe, and then own, essentially shares that entitle you to Bitcoin, but you don't have to deal with any of the settlement or have an account on like a trading platform like BitBuy, and then you will never be able to actually have the private keys or own the custody of the asset yourself. It'll always be done by a company like Gemini, for example, and then you'll pay annual premiums that ongoing to be able to own the funds through that. So I think it's a great way just to kind of get started, dip your toes, or if you really just don't want to deal with it, or maybe you don't have great aptitude to like create your own account on one of these trading platforms, or if you never want to hold the actual coins yourself or move them into some other type of trading platform or smart contract, DeFi alternative. There's lots of ways that this ecosystem exists. So it's just a very simple way to get exposure to the industry. And that's kind of how I would describe it and summarize it, and really, use that, once again, that comparison towards actually having the asset in your hand, for example, like on your own private key, like a bar of gold, which kind of speaks to the principles of crypto. If you study the origins of crypto and Bitcoin and understanding, the libertarian ideologies around, having your own money that may be outside of the control of a bank or a traditional system, to a certain extent, like really owning that and controlling that, then that's sort of just a different approach, as opposed to having this type of investment vehicle that gets you exposure.
Oh, you're bang on. The ETFs are great for the rookies to get into, just like you said, get your feet wet. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, and you want to have at least a couple, but if you can't afford a couple, you want to have at least a piece of one. And on BitBuy, you have the opportunity to actually own that fractionalized ownership and any percentage of that Bitcoin. You guys don't just offer Bitcoin, though. You offer a multitude of cryptocurrencies, the big ones, the important ones, the stable coins. And it's also very intriguing for institutions in Canada to jump on the platform if they want to throw Bitcoin on their balance sheet. You guys have OTC for the larger investments. And heck, with all the companies, with Tesla leading the charge and MicroStrategy and other Canadian companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet as well. How do you guys go about pitching to companies, or when they come to you, how do you walk them through the whole, go with us with the OTC, we have the NOx storage, it's creme de la creme, it's ironclad, nothing's getting through. How do you walk them through that process and get them to store Bitcoin via BitBuy?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. And I think that is especially applicable to anybody listening to the podcast that owns their own business, because you can literally do this with your auto body business or your dental clinic or your hair salon or your furniture business, or and we've done all of that. Or you could do it with a publicly traded company that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars and trades on the TSX and the NASDAQ, and we've done that too. So we kind of cover it from mom and pop all the way up. And it really ultimately comes down to the structure of your investment. Like, for example, if you have a business that has cash on its balance sheet and you don't want to leave that cash in Canadian dollars and you want to hold sort of your reserve asset in Bitcoin or another digital asset, you can do that. And what's great is you can come right to BitBuy and you can click right off the bat. Do you want to create a personal account or a business account? And if you click business account, it's going to walk you through that whole KYC FinTrack registered sign up process that we abide by, of course, as a FinTrack registered company, which, just to kind of speak to that, BitBuy is a money service business registered with FinTrack. More specifically, we're a VASP, which is a virtual asset service provider. So it's kind of the most forward looking, registration here in Canada for these types of businesses, and it requires a lot of work on our end internally to make sure that we're complying with those specific registration requirements. So what you got to do is you got to go through the KYC like you would as an individual, but you have to KYC your business. And so we make it really easy. You sign up, you get KYC as an individual first, because if you own that business, you're still going to have to get KYC as an individual, as basically like a beneficial owner of that business, or a shareholder or a director of that business. And the KYC will have to be done on each one of those shareholders that owns more than 20%, or each one of those directors and so forth, right? And then you would then provide that same information on your corporation, such as your articles of incorporation, who owns the company, making sure that everything is kosher per se, and everything looks good, and you're not on any terrorist watch list, blacklist, or criminal list. You get the idea. And so we've automated that whole process to make it really easy, so that we can process a high volume of those types of corporate or business onboarding. The same way, it's very similar to what you would do with a traditional investment account. Certain places when you're onboarding, your business you can buy stocks with your business, or you can buy other assets with your business as well. So that's the first step, right? It's just getting onboarded with an account. And then once you're onboarded, it's very much a similar way that you have your account on BitBuy. You can buy Bitcoin, you can wire it in, you can work directly with an account manager at BitBuy that's going to really give you that white glove service the whole way through, help you get onboarded, and help you get that bank wire in from your business. Because ideally, if you're coming in with a business, you're probably doing some larger amounts, but nonetheless, BitBuy won't turn you away if you're doing smaller amounts with your business either. And so it's really then becomes around, why would you put the funds in from your business? Like I mentioned, you have extra cash on your balance sheet. You don't want to pay yourself that income and incur additional tax liability paying yourself income from that business, so you can have it potentially grow and protect your business, the cash in your business from inflation, and have that Bitcoin on the balance sheet on the business, which is exactly what MicroStrategy did, because with their extra cash reserves, and I think they even borrowed more money to buy even more Bitcoin. And so that's how we're making that process easier, and that's how we're helping Canadians add Bitcoin to their balance sheet for their businesses here in Canada.
This is a question that a couple guests chimed in and really wanted to talk about: the struggles of building an exchange in Canada. Absolute shit show. The struggles of building a crypto exchange in Canada. Give me the goods on that.
Banking.
The monopoly.
The oligopoly. The big five. Yeah. Luckily, there's hundreds of financial institutions in Canada. Credit unions, smaller banks, other Schedule I banks that understand the benefits of Bitcoin and crypto, and understand why people want to use it, and have higher risk, as they call it, departments that service this industry. So it's a bit of a scavenger hunt to find those banks and those institutions that will work with you. And so that's always been kind of the struggle for these different companies, and still is a struggle, because a lot of the smaller companies, they may not have the capital to pay the high fees to the smaller institutions that will bank crypto businesses. And a lot of them didn't even exist when we were starting out. And then they would go to the big banks, and then you're basically playing what we call bank account whack-a-mole, where you have one bank account, and then that one gets shut down because they figure out you're not a software company, you're a Bitcoin company, and then that one gets out. Okay, so let's use this one over here, and so that's sort of the saga for the Canadian crypto businesses trying to essentially use bank accounts, and whether it's for operations or even just for paying their staff. And so it hasn't been the most friendly environment in that sense. And I don't think they've quite wrapped their head around it, but I think all they see is withdrawals.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm the type of person that I'll put myself in, other people's shoes and try to understand their views on things. And I think from the bank's point of view is they see that just that, the deposit banks are, supposed to get deposits. They're judged on how many deposits they have. And we don't really realize that here because it's just 5 big ones and they have tons of deposits and, that's their job. But, in the States where it's more competitive, it's all about, okay, get deposits, because the more money that is under their management, the more they can earn, lend that money out, create more revenue for their bank. And I think what happens is the banks here, they see the money flowing out, and then it doesn't necessarily come back, right? It goes into this new alternative asset class that, has ballooned in market cap now to, well over $1 trillion. And so I think they feel threatened and they feel that, it's not necessarily good for business and ultimately don't want to support it, especially if they can't make money off it themselves. Like if the banks wanted you buying crypto, Matt, don't you think they would just sell it to you themselves?
Yeah, but it's the banks. They're catastrophically slow with, almost everything.
Right.
My next question, and this is one that every country in the world is probably scratching their heads at right now. How does Canada become the next Wyoming or Miami or Malta, Singapore, Dubai, a crypto-friendly country and or city? All the points you just touched on, like, would it not make so much sense for Canada to go to the big 5 banks and be like, fellas, listen up. Make crypto easy, make it sexy, make it simple. You know how many people are going to come to Canada? One, we have some beautiful big cities, which could all be crypto hubs. Like, what's stopping this? What are the objections here?
I think it just comes down to regulation. And I think that, there's also a certain amount of control. So why does regulation exist? I think regulation exists to try and, maybe A, protect their citizens, but B, also, maintain some sort of control over their citizens as well. So I think that's kind of what it comes down to, is that the regulation can't keep up with the industry. And we're in a disruptive industry, and it's disrupting traditional banking that that's been around for hundreds of years, and it's disrupting fiat money that, governments control. And so I think it's been hard for them to catch up and wrap their head around it and be able to innovate around it. So I think that's the biggest issue that we have. And so it takes, certain folks within the actual government and the establishment to sort of push the agenda to say, look, no, we need to get, involved in this. This is the future. This is where things are going. Money is going to go digital. The systems we're using are becoming outdated. This is becoming disruptive the same way that Uber disrupted the taxi cab industry, or Airbnb has disrupted the hotel industry, or email, disrupted the postal industry. Like, it's the same kind of thing that's happening over and over in different industries, and cryptocurrency is doing it towards the traditional banking and fiat system. And so I think, maybe we can get there with the central bank digital currencies and the integration and the embracing of Bitcoin and figuring out the right regulations to put in place that don't stunt the industry and don't stunt the innovation. Because ultimately, I think this innovation's happening whether they like it or not. So it's just really around figuring out the ways that they can work with the companies and the folks within the industry so that they can embrace the change and ultimately, empower their citizens to live better lives through these new types of innovations.
Imagine a city like Toronto was like, hey, everyone bring your crypto and your crypto companies to Toronto. We're making it all tax free. Imagine the influx. I know that's a big dream. It's obviously a pipe dream, but come on.
Be incredible.
It's like we'd probably get our first Michelin star restaurant. We get 4 hockey teams there. Like we get an NFL team. We'd probably get, it'd be insane. It would,
the BitBuy Center.
Oh man, that's good. The Toronto St. Pat's BitBuy Center. I love that. You brought up CBD.
I might have to move to Miami based on the, everything that's happening down there.
Mayor Suarez, he's got a pretty good pitch. He's done his work. He knows what he's doing. Have you seen that on Twitter?
Oh yeah, totally. And, I don't know if you saw that news recently with the FTX stadium.
That is insane. That exchange is doing like just bananas numbers.
Yeah, well, Sam Bankman-Fried, right? SPF, they call him the brain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it's incredible. And so they bought the naming rights. I think it was like a 5-year, $135 million deal. It's crazy.
It's nothing. That's baby food for them with the kind of volume they're doing. It's an absolute walk in the park.
They're doing something right, I guess, right?
Oh, of course. You brought up central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Canada. How many years until we get one? I know it's a tough question.
I think we're at least 5 years away.
5 years away, really?
Yeah, I think we're at least 5 years away. Because what is it really going to do, right? Is it just going to be a replacement for Interact and Swift wires and electronic fund transfers and, prepaid bills? Like, think about how we use money now, right?
You don't touch money. I can't remember the last time I paid for anything in actual dollar bills. Yeah.
But I think that this isn't even that. I think that this is disrupting those methods I just mentioned. It's the rails, the payment rails. And so if they put Canadian dollars on a blockchain and then you just pay everything through a public blockchain that's accountable, and you would go and pay for coffee with Canadian dollars, and it would be technically a central bank digital currency that's on a blockchain that uses cryptology, and you use QR codes and you use wallet addresses as your bank account. Like, it's hard to imagine, but I think that's where we're going. And I think that the people that know crypto and that have moved crypto, and like at least the younger generation, will know how to interact with those CBDCs when they get there. And you can kind of see it's already happening in China. So I think it's still a ways off, but I think that that's how it could be structured, and it could be provisioned by the Central Bank of Canada. And I think it could be done. They're just going to hire a shit ton of really amazing blockchain developers.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'd make it an ERC20 token.
No, well said. Jordan, I do love the new design on BitBuy. You guys really popped it off with the new orange, new feng shui, and a lot of new functions and capabilities as well. I would love if you could tell our listeners a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we wanted to do something new for this bull run, and we wanted to really mix it up. We saw every other crypto trading platform was with the purple, and we were with the purple, and we thought we'd bring it back as almost a throwback to our roots, where we originally had our logo in orange, and it kind of speaks to Bitcoin in of itself. And it reflects the classic cryptocurrency with the gold and the orange tones. And really what we're trying to represent is the growth and transformation. And then sort of the navy, of course, giving it much more of a professional look and feel, which we know that, our clients are demanding. We essentially upgraded by improving the login experience. So we moved to username logins. It's been pretty painful for people to transition, but once they have it, we just believe that username logins are much more secure and much better experience for clients to maintain that security, which is one of our guiding principles of the business. We relaunched the mobile app on a new framework, React Native framework. So you're looking at much faster load times, more responsive interfaces, and that really speaks to us wanting to be a mobile first company, longer user sessions so that users can stay logged in, but still maintain that security. And we have a much more improved onboarding experience. As I was mentioning earlier, on our call around corporate and business accounts, including also just much quicker KYC onboarding, integrated OTC trades into the history, better wire transfer, some lower fees. We've reduced the fees on the express trade down from 0.5% to 20 basis points, which is 0.2%. We've reduced bank wire withdrawal fees, and we've also added Authy, which is something that people really wanted, which is an additional 2FA option. Of course, if you don't know what 2FA is, get on that. It's just a must-have in sort of modern online platforms, adding that additional security and not using SMS. We already had Google Authenticator, but we added Authy as well.
That's two-factor authentication.
Yeah, two-factor authentication to basically secure your account. So anytime, you have a bank account or any type of account, even your email account, it's always good to have that two-factor authentication on there. And then really, like you said, all of that new branding and everything like that. And then what's really exciting is the framework that we've now put the platform on will allow us to add a bunch more coins pretty swiftly, starting shortly with, of course, Chainlink, which has been something that our users have been asking for a while. And then we're looking at some other DeFi tokens such as Aave as well coming soon. And then there's more to come quickly after that. So that's the quick and dirty about the new Bitbuy platform.
Love that. When's Dogecoin jumping on board?
Well, it's a good question. We get a lot of demand for it. So it's something we're looking into. We're just evaluating it and making sure that, it's going to fit in line with our principles. But I did hear that Mr. Elon Musk was throwing some Dogecoin on the next SpaceX rocket and literally flying it to the moon. So I don't know how true that is, but someone told me that the other day and I couldn't believe it.
What a hoax. What a coin. That's 2021 in the meme world for you. And folks, even though this is a no free ads podcast, I do use BitBuy myself. So we will give them the free ad here. When you sign up, it literally takes, I think the whole process takes about 10 minutes. And that is literally until you can actually deposit your Bitcoin, or whatever currency you're into buying. Go online, do the KYC, which stands for Know Your Client. It's very quick, takes about 2 minutes. The same standard process that you'd go through. Once you've done that, you're signed in, you're good to go. You get the 2FA, and that is a text to your phone or email to your email account. Once you get that code, plop it in, and boom, you're off to the races. You buy the Bitcoin, and it shows up literally 10 minutes later. Once you have that Bitcoin, you can send it to any other Bitcoin address around the world, and for very low fees and very quick transaction times as well. Again, no free ads. However, since I use this product and it's a good old Canadian company, we have to shout them out. Jordan, this has been a treat. Couple more questions, if you don't mind. I know we spoke about Dogecoin quickly. I have to ask you about NFTs. They've been popping off and taking the world by storm. I don't know if you saw AM34. My boy Austin Matthews, he just released an NFT. The NHL is, probably coming out with their own version of NFTs shortly to follow NBA Top Shots. But what is your stance on NFTs, and where do you see those popping off in Canada?
Well, can you tell me what that sold for, Mr. 34?
I did not. I haven't been following it. I do know that a good chunk of the proceeds went to charity.
Oh, wow.
So
that's fantastic.
It is for a good cause. Yeah, he's a good lad.
NFTs are incredible. I think it makes a lot of sense. I have one of those Samsung art TVs. So it's like all my art that I see in my house on that TV is digital anyways. So why not pay for digital art and put it on the blockchain to represent your ownership and make sure that that's just a better way of sort of holding the title or the deed, as you might say, to that ownership of that piece of digital art. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. I think as more the digitization of everything, including art and wearables and other types of assets and moving forward, it just, to me, it sort of all falls in line with what's happening. We even have local artists, shout out to Krista Kim, her digital Mars house sold for $500,000, which was a really cool, piece of digital art that was done on Super Rare, which is of course a digital marketplace. So to me, I think there's a lot of hype around NFTs right now. People still don't really understand it the same way most people don't understand cryptocurrency and the technology behind it. But I think as you learn more about Ethereum and crypto and DeFi, NFTs sort of start to make more and more sense. I personally don't own one yet. I just haven't had time, but I want to buy one. I want to buy some NFTs. I think it's really cool. I have some of my business partners, they over at Bitbuy, they have some NFTs. Of course, they're way more on top of this stuff than me. I'm way more heads down. I'm just not doing this stuff. So it's super cool. But, I think when you see where things are going online with digital, the younger generation, they literally will meet up online, with their friends in a digital environment. They're walking around and then they'll go in these digital environments and go watch a movie together in this digital world and pay for it using some sort of crypto. So it's to me, it's and when you hear about those types of things that are happening, this NFTs and stuff like that, not, for those that don't know, non-fungible token, they seem to make a lot more sense. And basically, for those that don't quite understand, I think what really clicked for me was that you have why they call them NFTs is because they're non-fungible tokens, meaning they're not used in the Ethereum, where you have lots of Ethereum and all Ethereums are the same. It's literally a one-off version that lives on a blockchain, like an Ethereum blockchain or a smart contract that you have the private keys to, and just a one-off. And so that's why it's non-fungible, but it's a token, and that is essentially that file lives on top of that network, and then you own it. So that was sort of where it kind of clicked for me, and I hope that's helpful to people listening to just help them better understand what an NFT is and sort of how it works.
Crazy things happening in the space. One last question before we let you go, Jordan. Bitcoin to 100K. When's it happening? How soon?
As long as everybody knows this isn't investment advice, I think it's inevitable. People will ask me, when's it going to 100K? I think, or is it going to 100K? Is it going to 100K is a lot better question than when's it going to 100K?
Oh, it's definitely going to 100K. That's why I'm asking, when is it going?
So if it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, then as long as you dollar cost average, buy dips, hold all long term, then, it's kind of, if you have that conviction, I think you'll be in a good spot. But I think we're going to see it in this cycle. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if it did by the end of the year.
There you heard it. Not financial advice, but Bitcoin 100K USD, not CAD. I guess that would be 130 CAD by then.
Yeah. Well, it was just the other day. It was at 80,000 CAD.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It doesn't seem that far away. That if you asked me a million USD, then my tongue would really be twisted.
Oh yeah.
But I think we're not that far off now, right? At 60, hitting last week with the Coinbase IPO, all-time highs of, close to 65,000 US. I don't think it quite got there. I think it was 63.5.
Craziness. Jordan, this has been an absolute treat. I really appreciate you coming on. We're definitely going to have you on for round 2. And I look forward to buying into the BitBuy IPO in 2024, 2025. So that'll be awesome.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure being here.
Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Folks, this is the Crypto News Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to this one. If you like this episode, we are going to be releasing many more like this. Please give us a subscribe. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts and anywhere else you can find podcasts. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next episode. All the best. Bye.